Here we go. Computer populate. What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here, host. Oh, hold on. Let me just see. I don't think it's on yet. Okay, what? Oh, what is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I like to say, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And I'm also a certified empowerment coach. I am president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And happy to be here and happy to share with you. And hope you're having a terrific Thursday live here on May 10th. And also a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And you know what? Two times can be a really good thing. And one of the reasons is that Jazz Keys is back. She was on last week talking about black women not trying to be a superwoman and to take off their cape. And she's back again, and she's become a friend of the Dr. Vibe Show. Her and her president, who's not in the room right now. You know, the president of the Jazz Keys compound is in hiding right now. But Jazz is a clinical psychologist, certified life coach, author, motivational speaker. She's recognized for her work as a community activist. She spent the last 10 years of her career focusing on empowering the lives of others with an intense focus on women, people of color, and children. She's been honored. She's been honored as a neighborhood hero by ComEd for her involvement in numerous community-based initiatives. She supports her clients with the necessary tools and techniques to awaken their divine energy, heal their open wounds, and create an aura of love, compassionate, and tranquility. She's so compassionate and so tranquil. You know what? She's so cool. It's like there's an old babyface song called "The Cool in You." Maybe he wrote that for Jazz. Maybe that
I'll
is, you
take
know,
it.
yeah. And she has been featured in Jet Magazine, Black and Married with Kids. Also, she's now being featured regularly on Ebony Magazine's website. And she said she just got the shipment in for her first book. Yay! If we knew better, the soul cries of the women of the past and present. And she told me before we went live, her and her daughter are going to be signing and shipping books on Mother's Day. So I don't know if that's the best Mother's Day bonding they can do, but hey, it works. It works, you know?
Yeah.
And she's also preparing for a PhD program in fall 2017, which means that I got to get her on as much as possible for the fall because fall time she's going to be in lockdown. So, you know, so she's studying to receive her Doctor of Philosophy in Marriage and Family Therapy with a specialization in couples therapy. She's devoted a great deal of time and energy mastering the art of communication to create healthy, dynamic, long-lasting relationships and to help others do the same. And you know what? She's been busy like crazy since last week. So, first of all, thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate it and don't take
Oh,
it for granted.
absolutely.
How you
Absolutely.
been?
Thank you for inviting me.
How you
I've been
been?
doing amazing. I've been doing amazing. I have honestly no complaints at all. I've been doing exceptionally well. So very, very grateful for that.
Hey, and just want to shout out welcome to Tachi, one of my faithful followers and online friends based in Florida. Thank you so much for joining in. And Tachi, you know, if you have any questions, just send them on in. And anytime you have to share with me is always makes me a better person. So thanks so much for coming on in. You like let's even catch up. You were on a Twitter chat a few days ago, were you not? Jazz, you were on a Twitter chat?
Oh yeah. I was. I was on my first Twitter mashup. I was guest hosting Blurred Dating. It was exciting in so many ways. But yes, it was my first Twitter chat, and they just threw me straight into like a guest hosting role. So extremely fun.
Yes,
I
and
survived.
yeah, yes, you survived. And it's funny because Jazz told me, I'm not that technology savvy, but you're getting there real quick.
I know all the opportunities that I am fortunate to have come from people who are really mastering the field of technology and really kind of understanding how beneficial it is. And so I'm grateful for individuals like yourself who say, "Hey, my radio show is a Sky radio." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's try that." So, you guys are forcing me to move into this space very rapidly, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm not forcing with you. I'm walking with you.
There you go. There you go.
I'm
And you
walking,
are. You are.
and we are here to help you whatever way we can.
I believe that,
Thank you.
truly. Thank you.
Excellent.
Vice versa.
How did it feel to receive some of those books?
Oh my gosh, it really felt amazing. It's just one of those things that you just kind of have to keep keeping yourself encouraged and empowered through the process. And writing the book is just one process, and then the editing and design is another, and then the marketing and then the sales, and so with all things kind of speaking into existence, hopefully as we progress forward in our careers and branch. And I say us, I mean me and my daughter and I. We get to have someone who can oversee that for us. But right now, we're getting the experience of bonding through the entire process. So we are kind of like cheering for the fact that here it is. Now we get to really put our books out there and mail them out and all that part. So
I, I
it's
have
exciting.
I have a favor to ask.
Sure.
Can I get you on the show to talk about the book at another time?
Oh, absolutely.
I am very
Absolutely.
interested. I'm very interested in seeing and hearing about this book because I've heard so much about it and it's finally arrived. So I want to hear about it. If I can't read it, I got to hear about it,
Oh,
you know?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's I consider it to be a powerful book, and just more so in the space of addressing our pain and working through our healing. So I'd be more than happy to come in and talk about it, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, tonight you're taking, just another small subject of a, how can African Americans break the cycle of inherited poverty? Now, first things first, why did you write about it? Because it's interesting. Because last week you were talking about black women not trying to be superwomen. Now you're taking even a bigger subject about
Yeah.
breaking inherited poverty. So, what's the story behind this article before we get into this article?
Sure, awesome. So, what I appreciate, and I was contributing to Jet for about a year, a little bit over a year, and I was mainly in the love and relationship section. So when I crossed over to Ebony's Empowerment and Wellness, I kind of stuck my toe in to see, exactly where you're gonna let me go with this empowerment and wellness kind of thing, because I can go really left and be very conservative, or I can just really dig deep. And what I am really fortunate about is that they've allowed me to utilize the platform to just speak some raw truths. And so until they, pull back the reins, I'm just going to go all full force in. And so my thought is, in the context when I think about empowering and the wellness of the Black community or the African American community, what I think about is how we first have to address the reality of what we're dealing with before we can move into empowering, right? So I can't talk to you about all the things that we can do to create this better life for ourselves, this better existence, without acknowledging and paying respect to the fact that there are some very broken systems in place right now that make it very difficult for us to step into our full, potential. And so my thought every time I write these articles is, let's just deal with it, right? Let's just go in, let's talk about it, let's be truthful about it, let's speak up in a very informed way, and then let's invoke change. And so when I wrote this article because I think so often, or too often, we kind of stay stagnant and don't even realize the complacency. And so in the realms of finance, when I look at just the other racial or ethnic groups that have been able to really progress financially, I feel like with the skill set, the knowledge, the natural talents that, the African American and Black people have, we have to really deal with why aren't we able to just generate extreme wealth. And so that was just my objective, is to like, let's talk through some of this, let's figure out what's going on.
What sort of environment did you grow up in regards to this subject?
So I grew up very poor. That's the first thing. I grew up in, not the most favorable conditions in regards to home environment or physical environment. Um, Not in the exchange of like love necessarily, but just more so in the context of money management, cash flow, understanding the preparation of future events, the freedom that is associated with money. We didn't have that financial freedom. Very broken process and relationship with money. So money came in, money moved out quickly. Things were mismanaged. There wasn't always enough, so it was like that rob Peter to pay Paul. And what I realized was that the conditioning of the mind sometimes will allow you to think that this is just all that it is, right? This is just how living is. And so until we really reshape the way that we understand money, our relationship with money, our spending, our ability to generate, wealth, we won't be encouraged to change that behavior. And so, yeah, I grew up where everything said, there should be repeat poverty, repeat struggle, repeat lack of money, lack of freedom. Yeah.
What are some of the reasons that you feel that this cycle of poverty is continuing it until this time?
So I think there's a few contributing factors. And again, we can probably create a list. So my list is not at all exhausting, but I'll just talk about in the personal things that I've, noticed is, again, I talk about the inheritance of it, right? So we look at, some of our other counterparts, our, Caucasian counterparts or so on and so forth, and we see the way that they pass down wealth. We see the way that children are born into more money, they're born into more opportunity, they're born into stability, and so they're inheriting wealth or inheriting money before they even have to really go out and understand how that is coming in, and how to continue that on. And I think that what's happening with us is we're seeing generation after generation after generation being born into systems of poverty, and being born into the understanding that this is just the condition in which our people are existing in. And so with that, it is the sustainability of poverty. Like, poverty in itself has a certain level of sustainability, meaning that we're contributing to us remaining kind of stuck in that. And that's a lack of education. So it's just not knowing, that's huge. We just don't know how to increase our income, save our money, balance debt to income. We don't understand credit. We don't, and so there's a lack of education that drives a lot of it. It's, seeing and adopting the behavior of those who come before us. So whether it be parents, guardians, we see them live paycheck to paycheck. We see them struggle. We see them be overworked, underpaid, and we adopt some of those same conditions, or we don't see the way out of those spaces. Mismanagement of finances, all of those things are contributing to, just again, a lot of these cycles of poverty that are really difficult to break.
Well, just like the last time that you graced us with your lovely presence and loving presence, the audience is reacting already, and I want to shout them out already. Tachi is agreeing with what you just said, and on top of it, a poverty mindset. And a gentleman who I haven't seen for a while, Judah Garcia. Long time no see. We just say long time. Great to have you here. He says that the military teaches complacency kills.
Yes, yes. And so I 100% back what they're saying, and I think that they kind of came in to support the fact that it's a lot rooted in the mentality of it, right? The behavior is the manifestation of thinking. So it's our thoughts that we need to alter first. And before we can begin even doing the work to change, or, to invoke change, we have to first start with how we think. So whenever I deal with a client who's dealing with finances, it's really processing the relationship that they have with money, right? How do we think about it? How do we understand it? What do we know about it? And so he's very correct, and so as she is. It's really rooted in that mentality, a poor man's mentality, or that complacent attitude.
Well, and Junior is going to ask, and I wasn't going to save it till later. I like to try to get these conversations going in real time as possible. He wants to know what helped you break the cycle.
Yeah. So, uh, I when I left home, I had a very worrisome relationship with money. Money was a very anxious, like it caused a lot of anxiety for me because I had always, it was never enough. It was never enough. And so what I ended up learning to do was just bring in money, So I worked 3 jobs. I just wanted to always combat the fear of if something happens, because things would happen, we'd never have the money. And so for me, what I came to realize is that in the space of those who come before us, sometimes they just do the best they can with what they know. And so I feel like my parents did the best they could with what they knew, but they just did not have great money management skills, and they just didn't know how to, create wealth. And so I became very studious. What drove me was knowing that I didn't want to live the anxious life of always being concerned about finances. And then the finances were always a limiting factor for us. So there were things I couldn't participate in. There was maybe things that I couldn't afford in my more younger mentality. The certain attire I couldn't have, the certain look I couldn't achieve. I remember those things. But in my adulthood, it really was tied to freedom. And I had to quickly realize that if I didn't learn money management, economics, I would never be free. And so that's what drove me. I saw my college roommates' parents. I stayed with I had Caucasian roommates and an Asian friend, and their parents would come and write their tuition checks, come and write their rent for the full year, come and write their groceries. And I was working 3 jobs just to eat noodles out of a cup and stay in school. And I was like that. I need to know what they know, that they can come and write a full tuition check, right? And so that became kind of my push.
Junior has another question for you. He's on fire tonight, and Tachi, I know Tachi will keep up the pace with him. Judah is asking, how do you know when you've changed someone's mindset? When do you know they have that eureka moment? And I think this is a not just a financial, but just an overall coaching moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, to me, that aha moment is when someone can process or embrace the idea of shifting their behavior. That's to me when they begin to accept, acknowledge, adopt, appreciate a paradigm or a perspective outside of their own. So until someone sees a dilemma, an issue, complication with what they're currently doing or thinking, they're not going to be encouraged to change their behavior. So when I know someone has had an aha moment is when they are enthusiastic about really trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I do now? I've been doing it incorrect, or maybe I've been doing it, unknowingly. What do I do now that I have this information? And so when you start seeing someone be very encouraged to educate themselves and change their behavior, that's when they got it, when it triggered for them.
Okay, excellent. Keep the conversation going, folks that are on the watching this live. Thank you so much. Well, let's get to some of the actual, I guess, suggestions you make in the article. But I guess also
Mhm.
too the recent study by Nielsen Company saying that African Americans will have 1.1 trillion dollars in collective buying power by 2015, increasing to 1.3 billion trillion, sorry, by 2017, making us quote more relevant than ever as consumers. Can you expand on when you saw those numbers? What did that make you think of or think about?
So I remember, I don't quite remember where I was, but I remember being in the midst of like a conversation, and it was from an economic standpoint, they were saying that only 13 cents of like the dollar that we have is circulated in our community. And so that presented as an issue. Like if we are only spending 13%, 13 cents of a dollar in our community, we're not stimulating our economy. That's first. But then when I looked at our collective buying power, when I looked at, like you said, like $1.1 trillion, that to me is a clear indication that we have not yet recognized the power of money and the power we have collectively when we understand money. So we're feeding someone's economy. We're driving, business in someone's direction. We're building up some enterprise. We just haven't learned how to do that individually and collectively. And so that is an issue.
What do you think? And I don't know if this, let me just check. I know this may be part of your, okay, I'll hold it off because I'll see if it comes up down the road in the conversation. So let's talk about your first point about African Americans are becoming more financially literate. What do you mean by that, and what does that look like?
So to me, I think one, you know, essential component of really this concept of generating wealth is not just thinking that more money is going to be the key element. Like, I got to get more money, because then what will happen is that may mean picking up more hours at your current position. That may mean getting a second job, and so it really becomes this concept of thinking and understanding and expounding your relationship and your education with money, becoming literate. And so we have to really understand that economics is so multidimensional. Yes, it's about bringing in more income, but it's also about investment. It's about, what you're saving. It's about really creating other streams of income that are sustaining themselves in the midst of your active income. It's limiting debt. It's all of these components that we have to understand. Otherwise, all we're doing is working harder, and really we're not making more money. We're just stressing ourselves out by still trying to think that, again, working a job or creating more hours or more jobs is going to get you to a state of wealth. So there's a difference between bringing in more money and becoming wealthy and sustainable economically. And that's what we need to be aspiring to.
Would something to be add on that on working smart, not working hard?
Yes, yes. And so it's this space that we live in where it's like, it's not, you don't want to create this life where you're working 80 hours and after, because in your mind, the more hours you work, the more money you bring in, but you're not understanding, taxes, you're not understanding the stress on your body, you're not understanding, the welfare that it has on you mentally when you're straining yourself in that space, as opposed to setting yourself up for wealth by investing this money in various places or creating alternate streams of income that will segue you out of this conventional space, or investing in, long-term products and services that have, returns that are investment worthy. It's all of those components that we need to understand.
As we go through each one of these points, I'm going to ask, when did these happen to you directly?
I need some water. Okay.
That's okay. No, hey, you're on the go a lot. So hey, if you don't have fluids, you're gonna die, and we don't want to lose you. It ain't your time. But so
Okay.
in your journey, financial journey, when did you start becoming financially literate?
So I became, or started becoming, financially literate. Um, so I've always naturally understood that I didn't want to be poor my whole life, right? I didn't know how I was going to come out of poverty. I just knew that I didn't want to be poor my whole life, right? I knew that. And the only thing that my parents really knew was, go to school, get a good job, and then you won't be in this, position. And so my mentality for so long was, I just got to go to school and get a good job and I won't be poor. And what I quickly realized, as I segue from, so I'm sorry, let me backtrack. I've always been very money centered, not in a greedy way, but I understood that money afforded people other liberties that I didn't have. And so for that reason, I've always been very geared towards generating income. But when I became very financially savvy as far as learning the benefits of knowing about your money, it had to be around the college area when I realized I went and I got a um, credit card, and I didn't understand the interest rate and I didn't understand the annual fee, and I went and got a checking account, and I didn't know how to balance my checkbook. And they were asking me at one of my jobs for direct deposit, and I would go to the bank and take my money out. And so it was at that point that I realized that, okay, you have to stop and pause and figure out what's going on. So then I just became very studious. Like, what does this mean? What are they charging me? What is this for? And I studied finances with like a magnifying glass. And so once I put those two together, figure out how to generate income, and then figure out how to be wise with the money that you bring in, I began to really create, again, this freedom. And then the freedom is what really pushed me to continue to understand and work towards this wealth kind of generating attitude. And so that's what I do with my daughter now. So it was around that time when I realized that I had no idea.
Okay. Judah has another question for you, or maybe two. How much of a factor would political power or education help our cause? There has been a few times we have started pro-black communities but have been, quote, blackballed, unquote, or received less funding. Do you have any comments on that?
So the reality is that economics drives everything. At the core of most major systems, whether you're looking at education, whether you're dealing in the political realm, whether you're talking about jail systems and the incarceration, whether you're talking about the medical field, economics drives so much. And so that's why I pointed out our buying power, because I wanted it to be, I wanted us to be aware that if we could collectively figure out how to come together in a way that is trusting, and if we could collectively figure out how to come together in a way that we could really maneuver more with what our buying power is, trillion, we'd have more say so. And so we can rally, we can march, we can protest, and yes, a lot of that does have power, and it brings awareness, and it cultivates a culture of unity. However, at the end of the day, what's really evoking or able to evoke change is economics. That's what he's talking about, the blackballing and all of that. It's because money moves this world. And so that's why it's so important for us to understand, not just on a personal level, but how everything that is around us is so intertwined with the dollar.
Well, and it's interesting because we live in a capitalistic system and possessions are valued more than people, unfortunately, in a lot of cases.
Yes.
But even in those
Human capital is very low. It
yeah,
is.
and even in those systems that are not capitalistic, as Jazz said, money drives everything.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. And it's a very difficult spectrum to try to figure out how where to exist in, because you don't want to be, superficial or possession driven or all about, the dollar and all of that. But the absence of money is the absence of freedom. And so I always try to encourage people to understand that it's not about the accumulation of possessions. It's about your ability to own your life and to move yourself, down your pathway. And economics is going to be a contributing factor of that. So you can have all the skills and the knowledge and the training and the education and the talent, but at some point you're going to have to understand money in order to really evolve in your full potential, if that makes sense. Um,
Well, you know what? You just dropped another knowledge bomb tweet there saying the absence of money is the absence of freedom. I am tweeting
yes.
that out right now. That is what we call a knowledge bomb.
Thank you. I'll take it. But yeah, it's the truth. And so it's that poor mentality that one of your viewers mentioned earlier. The poor mentality says, let me get more money so I can buy expensive things that I can't afford and lease, trucks and homes and car and all these things. The real thing is what you are aspiring to is to be free. And so that's why I say the absence of that is the absence of freedom. Um, Hmm.
Very nice. This one we always say over and over and over again, but is something that is even more prevalent today. Having having more than one single stream of income. I think that is so apropos today that if you're not doing that, your wood may be wet. So what does that look like? And actually, you were in that sort of situation, were you not, a few times?
Having more than one or having one?
Both.
Yeah, I both. So if you're aspiring to be wealthy, and let me not just say wealthy in the space of like rich. Rich is finances. Wealthy is the abundance of all of these things, right? So it's the abundance of families, the abundance of gratification in all these areas, and money supports that. So the wealth, you can't do that on one income. You can be satisfied, you can be comfortable for those who are kind of in the higher earning spectrum. You can live comfortably. But if you are attempting to establish something with longevity and sustainability and building out for future generations, you cannot do it with one income. And so it's really important that we understand that working a 9 to 5 job is never going to get you out of working a 9 to 5 job. And so I think that that was one of the struggles that I seen in my home, was that there was only a certain amount of money coming in every 2 weeks or a month. That was a fixed income. And so not having that fluid income moving outside or around that fixed income made it very difficult to do anything aside from take that flat income, deduct expenses, hope there's a little bit left, make that work until the next deposit. And so I think that it's really important that we really understand generating our income outside of whatever it is that we're doing that's our bread and butter per se. And so yes.
Good
Yep.
stuff. And Judah's saying he loved that absence of money, absence of freedom take. She says, okay, makes sense. And then he says, hit him where it hurts. And Tachi is saying, aspiring to freedom. Very, very
Yes.
important.
Yes. Yeah. I
And
mean,
that,
because if you're looking at it just like, let me make more money, um, that's not necessarily the most encouraging way to aspire to it. But if you're really aspiring to the ability of, again, and when I say freedom, I mean not being confined by any element as it pertains to finances. So if you wanted to go right now and book a trip around the world, you shouldn't have to, navigate your finances, wait until next year, put it into like this crazy savings plan. What happens is if emergency does happen, are you equipped or prepared for that? Do you have these things in place? Have you set yourself up with the emergency fund? And then we begin building wealth. So I always say, let's lay the foundation, and then let's do the work to kind of create something that is long term. And so you got to look at your short term, your immediate, your short term, and your long term financial goals.
excellent. Judah has a question for you. What do you think are effective ways to establish wealth?
I like Judah. um, I think it just depends. So up until recently, I've spent a lot of my time kind of balancing both, right? So meaning I would go to my corporate job and I would use that to kind of funnel money and sustain my home and do all these other things, pay down. I have no debt aside from my student loans, but I have no debt. But it was all with the exit plan, right? My exit plan was to be able to stand alone and then to be able to exchange the income for the time, right? So the time now permits for more things to happen to be able to really focus on uprooting or creating these other streams of income, right? But I think it's important to, again, be informed. That's the very first thing I encourage is you have to know what you're doing with your money. Connect yourself with individuals who already have the knowledge or who are experts in the field, right? When we go to the doctor, we go to the doctor because they're going to tell us what's wrong, why this is going on, and they're going to give us what we need to get well. This is the same thing if you are financially sick, right? Connect with someone who has the resources, the information, the knowledge to tell you what's going on in your financial portfolio, where you need the assistance at, and has the remedy. And so I think that we don't know how to lean in on each other enough, meaning ask each other the right questions. But that opening your horizon mentally is going to do wonders for you. But again, it's multiple streams of income. It's laying the foundation, having the basics in place, and then it is constantly cultivating ways that are not just generating income, but really being able to manage that money as it comes in. Because I tell my clients, we can go out and you can go out and get another job, that's fine. But if you can't manage what's coming in right now effectively, all you're going to do is blow more money. And so it's all of those elements combined, if that makes any sense.
It does. I always say to people there's a difference between wealth and rich.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think for us, one of the things that I've come to try to get people out of thinking is I can't afford that. So oftentimes I'll hear someone say, "Oh, I would do that, but I can't afford it." Or I would go there, but I can't afford it. And so that is someone who has said to themselves that it's just a normal part of life that I have to sacrifice some of these things because I don't have the money. As opposed to, I want it, let me figure out how I can get the means in which to live this life. And so we have a very um, small mentality when it comes to money in the place of just really accepting that some of us aren't going to be rich or wealthy. Um, and that belief in itself cultivates a generation after generation of people who are not going to be rich or to be wealthy. And I think we really need to shift that mentality.
Good stuff. Keep it going. Let's just see what you have on the list next. Ah, Judah saying, "Stand on the shoulder of giants."
Yes, I like that quote.
Yes. Ah, I was waiting for Tachi to come in, and Tachi has a question for you. It's going to be another Wednesday night. You know that. We should just do Wednesday nights together, right?
There we go. I'm here for it.
All right. Um, Tachi is
We can have
asking.
fun.
Tachi is asking, how do we begin building generational wealth?
So I think that one of the most powerful things that we can do, especially when we're thinking about longevity, is we have to begin pouring what we know into children immediately. So I think sometimes, and I'll take this a different direction and kind of land the plane. I'll bring you back around. But I tell people, don't ask your children what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them what they want to be right now, and then empower them to do that, right? Because what happens is when we ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're telling them that they have to wait until adulthood to experience success, right? This is the same mentality with anything. When it comes to our children, we have to stop waiting until they encounter an experience to teach them after they've learned it the hard way, right? So right now, if you were to talk to my daughter, she would say, I would, because she has her own little business, and so we talk about money. And I say, okay, Hanadi, you've made this amount of money. What do you do with it? She'll tell you. You pay those who you owe, you reinvest in your business, you save, and then you can take a small percentage should you choose and do something for yourself. She's 6, but she understands you don't have any debt, so you pay
Wow.
who you owe. That's your
Mm-hmm.
first thing. You reinvest in your business. So you reinvest in the things that continue to flow your income until they don't require the money. They just sustain on their own. So she understands reinvestment, save, and then I can take a small piece of it and I can do something for myself should I choose. So, in order to create generational wealth, it requires us to first get the information that we need, begin the process, but stem out to our children as soon as possible, right? Teach them money as soon as possible. My daughter knows her numbers. She knows how much she is bringing in. She knows how much all of her classes are. She knows the cost of her books. She knows her book sales. She knows her numbers. And
Wow.
that is the mentality of a child who mother came from a potentially situation that could have really taught her something completely different. So as soon as we grasp the knowledge, we have to give it to our children.
Nice. And I love the way you put that. I think it's not the usual answer I hear to that about generational wealth, and I like that. Ask your kids what they want to be now, not wait.
Don't ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them, what do you want to be right now? What are you aspiring to do with your life right now? And then make that happen. My daughter has wanted to be every, I can't tell you how many careers she changed, but when she wanted to be an astronaut, we took cardboard boxes, we made a spaceship, we went and got a telescope, we looked at the stars, we studied astrology, and she was 5. And then in 3 weeks, she wanted to be a veterinarian, and we, played veterinarian with all of her stuffed animals, and she studied the different, anatomy, and she wanted to let me know she knew all the names of medical equipment. And then her change, and now she's a chef, and whatever it is, what she is already knowing at 6 is I can literally be anything I want. So it doesn't seem so far fetched, because if I want today to be that, that's exactly what I'm going to be. But she knows money, and she knows numbers, and she knows that my work equals my income. Like, she's already understood that I can work and I can make money. I think she asked me to take her to eat somewhere. And I said, no, we can go home and eat. I said, do you have money? And she said, well, didn't I sell some books today? And I'm like, well, you're absolutely correct. But what she understood is my work generated my income. I, you know, I want to spend a little bit of that on this. And so, yeah, it's just really powerful to create generational wealth, is to pass down knowledge. And then when we can pass down money.
Excellent. Judah saying that, nice. I had my daughter start her own business last year. I told her I will be the last
Yeah.
Dom Garcia. She's 13. And she says, what you're sharing is great thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell anyone, if I'm fortunate and if I'm doing this right, which I believe that I am, she'll never submit a resume for employment.
Wow.
She'll never submit a resume for employment. That is my goal.
Nice. Nice.
Mhm.
Let's get to number 3. This is epic. This is really epic. I'm enjoying this. I'm gonna have to. Like I said, I got to start booking you consistently on Wednesday nights if you have
I'm here
time.
for it.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
all right. We'll chat after. You are on Fiyah, and that's FIYAH. Gonna put in my calendar jazz time, 9 o'clock Wednesday nights. No one else can have it until she lets it go.
Awesome.
Number 3, invest in life insurance and a retirement plan. And I think this is a very, very big one, because one of the gentlemen who used to be regularly on, I have a weekly conversation on Sunday nights. Uh, Black man in Denver, Colorado, said something a little while back that's so interesting. He said, "Too many black people die with a bill, not a will."
Ma'am, yes. I tell, I say this, and it's a little bit of a dark humor, but it's fact. I say that I'm worth more to my daughter, dollar amount, in my passing, right? And it's a little dark in that space, but what I mean is that I have made sure that if for whatever unfortunate reason I do get out of here, and that she's taken care of for her life, not just my funeral expenses, but for her entire life. So I think that it's really important that we understand life insurance, right? And a lot of us blow life insurance money in a fast food line, right? If you get life insurance, ailing or failing health doesn't have to be our reality. That's a whole nother topic. This idea that we have to get old and get sick, that's completely different. But the reality is that in our prime, in our youth, or in our young ages, or even in our 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, let's get it when we're young, right? Because when I pay for life insurance right now for a substantial amount to sustain my daughter is pennies to what I spend on a regular, right? But it is a bill that I make sure is paid every single month. And then she has life insurance. So God forbid I have to bury my child. She also has life insurance policy, right? And so I think it's really important that, like he said, we aren't dying with bills, but with wills and with things in place to sustain our family.
And it's very interesting because for people who do not know, I'm based here in Canada, and we are looking what's going on with health plans or health policies in the United States. And wow,
Yes.
And I think even more so now to have a life insurance wherever you are, whatever age you are, just start. You know,
Just start.
I had one earlier, and just a few years ago I started doing it again because you're not going to be around forever, and with lack of pensions everywhere.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part about it is like my parents are in their 70s. Um, my mom really recently had to come to me and she came to me from a not pleased place, but she really had to say like I didn't understand it until you explained it to me, but I don't have a really she doesn't really have a life insurance policy. So it's already the understanding that God forbid something happens to her, it's going to be
A
an out of
challenge.
pocket expense,
Yeah,
right?
and I don't even want to
um
know how much that could be.
Yeah, and so the reality is that it's that freedom again, right? You don't even have the freedom to grieve because you're so busy right now trying to figure out how do I lay you to rest properly, right? Fortunate for her, she'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like it'll be fine. But it's a reality that so many times I see families, they're not even able to really grieve their loved ones because they're trying to sell food and collect money and do GoFundMe's and figure out how to lay this person to rest because our finances are not supporting our lifestyles.
And it's interesting. A few weeks ago, I was watching a documentary on the Philippines on CBC, which is the national news network of Canada, and that situation was existing in the Philippines. But that situation happens in North America too.
Yeah, it does. I unfortunately we're experiencing so much, death and violence and children getting out of here before their parents and people not making it to old age. It's just becoming so recurring that it's almost a norm in our space. But what's even more tragic is there's not the proper things in place to sustain your family should something happen to you. And so for me, when I think about my family or my child particularly, I already couldn't fathom her attempting to figure out how to, navigate life without her mother, let alone I pass and then she has to be reduced to a state of poverty, you know what I mean? Or be stuck in poverty. And so I think it's really important that we understand how something so small can be such a value to our livelihood, our children's, our families. Yeah.
I think it's one of those areas. Look at it as an investment, not an expense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ex-
Absolutely.
Okay, we are just flying along here nicely. Your next conversation piece is you're asking Black America to think beyond your own prosperity. What does that mean and what does that look like?
Yeah. So I think that I'm always a advocate for, self-sustainability first, right? So the concept that before I can, save you, I have to put my gas mask on, right? But there becomes a point where we have to get away from this very self-focused style thinking. So acquiring land, growing our own food, being community conscious, being thoughtful about the passing of knowledge, minimizing debt, thinking beyond just the small level of I just want to have money, right? And then I don't know if it's actually kind of pushed in here, but like the group economics. So I read something about a couple of different things. I read something about Denmark being one of the happiest places in the world. And I did some research to really try to understand, well, where's all this pleasure coming from in the space of Denmark? And they have a very group economic style culture. And they do things where it's like community living, where it's me and my daughter could exist in like a large space where we all are focused on pulling our resources together. So I'm renting a small space for my child. She has her own bedroom, whatever case may be. When she goes outside, she's in this large gated community, but it may be another parent's job to watch them play outside while it's my one time a month I have to cook dinner for the entire community, or someone might help them for homework so the mothers can work late, whatever the case may be. But what they have realized is this is really hard doing it on our own. So let's pull together and experience what happens when group economics. You see the same thing happen when we see multiple families in one household. It's this idea of, okay, let's contribute for our space in this entire, home. But that extra money that we would have been paying if we would have been staying and sustaining alone, let's invest that in our business. Let's invest that in paying off debt. Let's invest that in college funding. And so we have to get to a place where we understand the value of group economics.
What do you think is preventing us from getting that point of understanding group economics?
We have a deep level of just fear, and we're not trusting of one another just within our community space, right? We're just a very divided, minority group, a very divided group of people. And so I think that is reflective in so many areas. It's reflective in all of those spaces, and including our finances. So the likelihood of us saying, you know what, brother, how about we do this? What about we go and we invest, we buy this land, we stay here for a while, we all pay, one third of what we would have paid to stay alone. We pay off this home in a year, we rent it out, we divide that income. It's a very it's a very open concept for closed mindedness. You know what I mean? So if you're in this space where you're very self thinking and you're very untrusting, trying to introduce things that are collectively based or driven by a collective is very difficult. Me, however, I get
Well,
it.
and it's interesting what you just shared. And Judah has an interesting point saying people will label that socialism.
So, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think for me, I've seen it be successful. And so one of the things that we have to really adopt in the aspect of really trying to understand just where we are, where we have the potential to grow as a people, is it requires more than like just you. And for me, I think that I've seen it work. I've seen other cultures do it. I've seen friends do it. So I've seen like friends stay, them, their fiance, and their kids will stay with their parent-in-law until they have enough money to pay off like an entire, half of their mortgage. Meanwhile, we consistently rent on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm not I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be socialism. Um, well, yeah, I would kind
Yeah, but
of.
here's a point that some people may say that okay, how has
But I
cap
like I like the idea of being community owned. I'm
right?
not opposed to that.
You know what? But some people will say, well, how? What? Look at the results Black America's had with capitalism.
Yeah, it's not working for us. It isn't. I don't. I'm not opposed. I think that it's actually something that we should really consider and really think about in the space of community driven, community owned, us regulating from the inside. And so I think that it has more power than we think, right? And so again, it's breaking down some of these really like small minded
Thought
minds. So
process.
yeah.
Thought
Yep.
process. Judah says, being from the Caribbean, we've done that, and I'm still doing it now in America. And I think labeling it as socialism, there's already a lot of aspects that go on in North America right now that you could label socialism, but they work. How you say families living together till they
They
can,
work.
it works, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you call it. It's like when I'm a certified coach, Jazz is a certified coach. We coach for results. We don't care what the name of it is.
Yep.
You coach for results.
Yes. And sometimes it is the language that creates a barrier before we even expose ourselves to it. And the reality is that a capitalist society benefits from us believing that socialism won't work or is can't work. If we continue to be money focused and feed an economy that speaks to our insatiable need to compete and to have pricey things and to be flashy, then socialism or the idea of community regulating us isn't something that capitalism can benefit from, if that makes any sense.
Well, and the funny thing is, in capitalism, the government regulates you anyways. You're so it's already there's already regulations in place,
Yeah,
right?
it is. And those regulations don't benefit you.
There you go. Some more comments here. And Judah and Tachi, thank you so much. I know Jazz really appreciates the comments and the feedback.
I do.
And I know she likes it in a different way than when she does her Twitter chat. She likes the interaction, etc. And you can tell by her wonderful smile how much she appreciates it. Judah,
I'm trying to learn how to see their interactions too. That's something that you and I will have to work on. But
no,
I'm trying to learn how to see their interactions. But you're doing a really good job of feeding it to me. So,
absolutely.
yes, I am appreciating.
Yeah, Judah is saying when Tachi says exactly when Judah says when the market crashes again, we may have to go back to basics, barter. I think that's already happening. I don't think for a large amount of the population, they're already doing the barter economy, big time.
Yeah.
Um, and Tachi is saying we as Black people by nature are a communal people, and
Yes.
I'll just add on to that. It's very interesting. One of the books that impacted me greatly many years ago when I had hair, when I graduated from university, and I said I didn't want to read any more books. There was a book I read called, oh gosh, Black, Obsolete, Single, and Dangerous, and talked about the
Ooh.
African American male in, or the Black man in society. Um, no, I won't pull it out, but I could pull it out. Uh, that said that one of the challenges that Blacks have in North American society is Blacks' heritage is communal, whereas European society is individual.
Hmm.
So it's trying to put a
So,
round peg in a square hole.
yeah. And so I think that there is this really huge disassociation between blacks not understanding, yeah, and I don't even want to say understanding, so I'm going to be very thoughtful about my language, but disconnecting or disassociating the fact that we are African people who just have not had the privilege of understanding our culture and our origins, right? So I just came from Africa in January. And when I tell you the empowerment I felt just being there, and it was because it is so community based, right? It was my daughter could stay outside and play with the other kids, and they were like, oh no, she's fine, she can stay outside and play. And I'm like, okay, well, where I'm from, we watch our kids when they go outside because and it was, oh no, they're fine. And the men stepped out and went and played with the children. They helped in the kitchen. The women pray, like it was just, oh, you have to go here, I can take you here. Oh, do you want me to drive you to work tomorrow? Did you get help with your resume? Send me your paper, I'll read over it. Who needs something? Is there anyone who needs money? And it was just all centered around, if it's mine, it's yours. Because at the end of the day, if you're not prospering, if you're not at peace, neither am I. And to see the way that a community built around this idea of we all got to win, and I don't selfishly keep anything to myself because I want us all to experience. It was by far one of the most life changing experiences that I have ever had the privilege of living and existing, having my daughter exposed to, and it really shifted how quickly you can be in America and be focused on the wrong things.
I'm blessed that I know a little bit more about Tachi because she's on every month and we keep in touch with each other. She's gonna ask where in Africa you went because she is from Africa. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tachi, but are you from Nigeria? I believe. And if I'm wrong, please forgive me. But she would like to know where in where in Africa you went.
Yes, so I went to Kenya and I got to see three parts. I got to see Malindi, I got to see um Nigeria, I mean not Nigeria, I'm sorry, Malindi, where else did I go? Nairobi, and I went one other place. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right.
But I got to see the countryside, I got to see the city, and I got to see the beach area. But in every place that I went throughout Kenya, I got the same feeling of um, just family. Like it was like as if everyone became like your uncles, your aunt. And I think one of the gentlemen there said, he said, I'm sorry, but it's hard being a child in Africa because everybody is your auntie and everybody is your uncle. And it was so beautiful because that's exactly what it was. They would, correct children gently. They would instill morals and values, and they brought Nadi, my child, under their wing and had only met her, a few days ago. But she left with aunties and uncles and a family. And so it really allows us to wrap our mind around those things that don't have a price tag to them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And Tati says, LOL, we don't want to frame Africa as a monolith. And I feel good because I got it right. She is from Nigeria. Yay! I got it right. Well, we're doing great. Let's see what we have next. And it's your final area that you want to share with. And I'm just bringing it up right now, if my computer will behave. From small business to enterprise.
Yes. So I wanted to encourage those of us who are coming around that bend of understanding that, okay, so maybe going to school and getting a good job isn't, necessarily the pathway to wealth or to success or the only pathway. And for those of us who are beginning to understand the concept of do for self and really empowered to do that, is let's do it big, right? So let's not just adopt this idea that we are small business owners. Yes, it starts with a small business seed, but let's exist in a place that allows us to really build out small businesses into big enterprises.
Excellent. And I see the president of the company has entered the room.
Yep. Here she is.
Okay, well, that means to me that
You say hi.
we gotta wind down soon because the press is in the building.
Right.
Oh,
Oh, you can wave.
yeah.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Good. How's the business?
Okay.
I believe it. I believe it. So you gonna become a coach one day?
Are you gonna do a life coach like mommy?
Yes.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Excellent. Well, this is such. Hey, how come you? Does mommy let you stay up late?
She stay up late to do her work.
Oh, so cute, so cute. Well, as we wind down this conversation, since the president is in the building, what has been your response to this article?
This article was received extremely. It was really well received. I think that it drew attention to conversations that a lot of us have wanted to have. I think it pointed out some key points of really growing and expanding your business. And I think that it really worked to combat the idea that, yeah, a lot of us have inherited some of this debt and some of this broken thinking and some of this financial mismanagement.
Are you still working?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that becomes a lot of that element.
Man, you're a star. Everyone wants to attract to you. You're on fire.
Oh.
I'm telling you. Well, you know what?
I usually put my little sign up on my office door, and so that keeps it out. And I think what happened was I was rushed, and so no one saw the sign. So
No problem. Well, you know what? I don't want.
but my little one feels like whenever there is an interview going on, she is supposed to be part of it. So that is why she became very intrusive.
Well, you know what? She's part of the success, so she is welcome in anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Well, I know that I don't want to interrupt on your family time since the boss came in. So,
Yeah.
do you have any last comments you'd like to share with our audience?
No. Just really the idea that I think that these conversations do a really good job of transmitting knowledge and information. And so I think that it is really valuable for those of us who are on the verge of bringing in new insight and new information to be very thoughtful about continuously passing that on to others.
Wonderful. Well, Jazz, I'd like to thank you again for just rocking the house. You have a way of just getting people to ask questions and incite conversation. I'm truly thankful for that. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am at Jazz Keys on everything. I'm at Jazz Keys on Facebook. I'm at Jazz Keys on Instagram, Twitter. My email is info@jazzkeys.com, and then my web address is www.jazzkeys.com.
All right. And Judah is saying thank you.
Thank
Tachi's
you. Thank you
and
guys for engaging. I enjoyed myself, and you guys asked really powerful questions.
wonderful. Well, when we finish, I'll see if I can get her back on again because it seems that she's claiming Wednesday night, folks. It sounds like she's putting a claim on Wednesday night.
These are
So
really great conversations. I'm really open to that, especially once I learn how to read everyone's comments and
we'll get
when I
that.
learn how to, bring people
We'll get
into
it.
the conversations. Yeah,
We'll,
we'll work on that.
we'll get that. Tachi is saying thank you so much. So I am Dr. Vibe. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. If you want to touch base with me, best ways are Twitter at drvibeshow. Email address is dr period vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Website address www.thedrvibeshow.com. I'm a certified empowerment coach. So if you want a complimentary session, 30 minutes, just touch base with me. I'd love to do it because I'm a firm believer that the more empowerment you have in your life, the better you can be for yourself and for others. If you want to catch replays of my conversations, they're all different platforms from YouTube to Apple Podcasts to iTunes. Now, iTunes doesn't exist. I keep on getting iTunes. It doesn't exist anymore. There's iHeartRadio, Tuned In Radio, Stitcher, there's Google Play. There's a myriad of other things. Good Men Project, also WJMS Radio. But just go to my website address, put it in your favorite search engine, The Dr. Vibe Show. I'm very Googleicious. So just before we go, let me just promo upcoming conversations. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we have a really interesting conversation. We have the lady who wrote this book on, and her name is Maria Sabrochi. She has written a book called Nasty Divorce, A Kid's Eye View. And it's all about the effects of divorce on children. And she is a writer for the HuffPost Divorce section. And it's a really powerful book. And some of the stories in here are really heavy on the heart, but she provides solutions and suggestions for those times if you're in a marriage and it goes to divorce, how to handle the kids, and even gives things lawyer's perspective, psychologist perspective. Even things like if you are divorced, how your children can have a positive relationship with your ex. And then 9 o'clock tomorrow night. This is another epic conversation. The first one is, this one's going to be, I have a gentleman named James Foreman Jr. He has written a book called Locking Up Our Own, Crime and Punishment in Black America. This is the book. He is a lawyer based in Washington, D.C., and he basically spotlights how blacks did not do the best of jobs when it came to crime and punishment in Washington, D.C. over the years. Just a whole environment of crime and punishment in the Washington, D.C. area, how there were some misgivings by blacks, misgivings by whites. This is a powerful book. And funny story, I saw articles about this online. He, a few weeks ago, was interviewed on the Tavis Smiley show. And for those who know a little bit about me, Tavis Smiley is one of the major influences why I started this online conversation 9 years ago. So this gentleman is very much sought after. I have him for 1 hour tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you are available, I would love you to come in and speak with this gentleman. He's also a Yale professor. He has worked as an assistant for some Supreme Court judges. So he's very credible, very knowledgeable. And actually his mother, I believe, or father had history working in the civil rights movements in the 1960s. So he's all about that. So I hope that you can catch these conversations tomorrow night. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles. You're a solution for someone's problem. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And as we go offline, I will beg Jazz to see if she has more time, if her president will let her have some more time on Wednesday nights. So, and you got to love Jazz's smile on her. Isn't it outstanding? It is just it's
Thank
just the
you.
bomb. So, as always, sometimes you got to get smaller to get stronger. Thanks to Tachi and Judah for making this another epic conversation.
Yes.
If you didn't catch it live, please catch a replay. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. and have an outstanding evening. Bye-bye.
Mommy?
Let me wrap up really quick, but
Okay.